3 words: advanced aerial threat. Who in the CIA, NSA, DIA tells at least the United States of America that we're not alone in this universe? We have never been alone in this universe.
The U.S. government really has kept that secret, not only from the American people, which is bad enough, but even kept it from itself.
The UFO community has been portrayed as conspiracy theorists and tinfoil hats, and we're crazy. And the government is now admitting that UFOs are real and disclosure is here. Suddenly, they're our friend? No.
America's defense establishment is finally admitting some of what it knows.
This could have been a chance to say we're going to collaborate with the representatives of the people in what is supposed to be a government of, by, and for the people.
If what they tell you is the truth, there is no need to withhold it from public.
We've entered a quantum age, making a leap not only in technology, but also in consciousness. Companies are now creating non-sentient replacement humans. They look just like you and I. They're intended for customer service and things such as that, but these neons, as they're called, could be more nefarious than that.
We're dealing with a fight. There are forces behind the scenes that doesn't want any of this information to come out.
There's still a lot of truth that has yet to be revealed.
I was one of those quote-unquote men in black, but I realize it's probably better now to be known as men in white, bringing truth to the topic.
The problem with the truth is, the truth might be terrifying.
Oren.
Okay, I'm just waiting until it says I'm not muted. I think I'm muted, Chris. It says the host muted your mic. Oh, it says I'm good. All right. Needless to say, this is live, and we're doing a live stream. I'm Leon Isaac Kennedy, and it is great to be here with all of you. I want to say, first of all, thanks to our great friend, Jimmy Church. He's the one that made this entire series possible. So thank you, Jimmy. I know that you're traveling today, but thank you so much. Want to say thanks to Chris Isa, our technical genius, for getting everything put up correctly. I want to say thank you to our Adrian Youngblood. She was on standby just in case my plane didn't make it in on time. And I want to say thanks to our ever-loving Maureen for helping to find the hotel suite and everything else that we needed to pick this up, because there was no way that I could get off a plane and get home on time for this live interview. I share everything with our Oren family. So let me share what's been going on behind the scenes. Last week, I left to go to Washington, D.C., excuse me, for the Kennedy Center Honors. And I was there Friday, Saturday, Sunday for that. It was 3 days worth of ceremonies and luncheons and dinners and so on and so forth at the White House and other places where Congress would meet and so on and so forth. With the Kennedy Center honorees, this year they nominated and they received Bette Midler. I knew Bette before, but hadn't seen Bette in a number of years. So the great Bette Midler was awarded. Joni Mitchell, she did all the protest folk songs way back in the 60s and 70s. She was honored. A great tenor, the pride of Puerto Rico, they call him. He's an opera star. His name is Justin. He was honored. Lorne Michaels, who created and has been the longtime producer of Saturday Night Live, he was honored. I knew Lorne back when I used to work at NBC when I first came out to Los Angeles back in the early 1970s. And the reason that I was there is because my good friend Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown Records, person extraordinaire, was honored. And I've known Berry since I've been 15 years old. So a long friendship like that, I had to be there to applaud him as he was honored. And then I was there the rest of the week for just back-to-back meetings. So I had to be here today because I didn't want to postpone it, because we are with who I call a Renaissance man. I met Billy Carson, many years ago, but I've always been so fascinated with him. First of all, as I would go to the various conferences, Contact in the Desert and so on and so forth, he would be the only main person of color that I saw in this niche. And I said, well, this is a fascinating man. And then I would read some of his books and listen to some of his lectures, and I became more and more fascinated with Billy Carson. So I take great honor. Oh, I do want to say this. So I just got off the plane. I rushed into the hotel room here. We've been traveling for over 10 hours today, if you put in connection time. So if I looked a little bit fried, you have to forgive me. I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm fighting a little bit of a cold. But I did not want to miss this interview with my good friend. So Billy Carson, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. What a great way to introduce me back to the Fadernauts. What's up to all the Fadernauts? And thank you, Mr. Kennedy. I appreciate you having me on here, and I'm glad we were able to make this happen tonight.
Well, thank you. It's indeed our honor. You know, about 2 years ago, before COVID, you were teaching in Burbank.
Yeah.
And I was there 3 days in a row, because your teaching was 3 days in a row, 4 hours a day. And I was there like an eager student, just absorbing everything that Billy Carson was saying. And I was taking notes and so on and so forth. Yeah. And then you and I would have dinner afterwards and discuss it even more. And what a privilege that was. And I want to share some of that today with the Fade to Black audience and with the Oran audience. And I want to jump right into what you were teaching, which was on the Emerald Tablets. So, Billy, the Emerald Tablets, how long have they been around? Who wrote them?
Yeah. There's a little bit of controversy about the Emerald Tablets, and where the confusion comes in is that there's actually more than one set. You have an Emerald Tablet singular, and then you also have an Emerald Tablets plural.
Okay.
And so there is a tablets, and the controversy stems around which author actually were able to decode them, which person was given the right to actually go and retrieve these. They originally were written in the ancient land of Kem, pre-dynastic era. We're talking about 36,000 years ago. And they made their way all the way over to Mesoamerica when Thoth left out of the land of Kem. After ruling over the land of Kem for 14,000 years, he then left Kem and went over to Mesoamerica to kickstart the Teotihuacan civilization, pre-Mayan. He went there with Olmecs, and he built an entire super advanced civilization long before the Mayans even got there. He had the tablets with him. In the 1920s, a man was sent over to retrieve these tablets with approval from the Great White Lodge, and then brought these tablets back. En route, he was also given the approval to create his own translation of the tablets, which he did. And the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, the singular tablet, was translated by Sir Isaac Newton, and that is located in the Cambridge Library in England. So you can see that tablet. The other tablets, plural, have made their way into the Vatican archives and the 5 Mile Underground archives.
Okay, so how did you become this wonderful scholar on this material?
Well, you know, I came across the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and the Emerald Tablet of Hermes quite some years ago, and I started reading it. And the first time I read it, it really did exactly what the what the preface said. It would open up different avenues of enlightenment inside of your mind. And the more I read it, the more I started to see, the more I started to understand, like the greater my consciousness was growing. And so I started talking about it a little bit. And some people had come across this work and had been going through it and trying to understand it. And a lot of the people who were just understanding some more of the spiritual aspect or trying to grasp the spiritual aspect, but I saw not just the spiritual. I
Mhm.
saw quantum physics, I saw quantum mechanics, I saw standard physics, and I also saw advanced technology. And the more people I talked to, they were trying to wrap their heads around the whole thing. But I was able to see all the different correlations with what we call now the modern era and some of the rediscoveries, I like to call them, that we've got now. So I started digging real deep into the tablets. And after going through the tablets and reading them well over 100 times, analyzing every single verse, every line, every word, breaking everything down, and then making the correlations in my mind and my notes to what we have now in the modern era, I realized I was looking at a sophisticated piece of work that tied spirituality to science and also tied that to advanced technologies, that we would think would be futuristic, but happened back then.
Now,
Yeah.
Billy, in putting it together, what is their significance for us, people that are living in this era? What's the significance for us?
It's a huge significance. I'm glad you asked that question. So the Emerald Tablets were written for us right now in this current day. Even though they were written back then, the writer knew that the people would never be able to grasp the true meaning and knowledge and wisdom and the esoteric knowledge in them until the era that we are in now. We've actually arrived at the moment of time where we're supposed to be able to not only read them, understand them, digest them, but actually take action on them. And what it means for us is to understand the dichotomy of yin and yang, and that we can't fight evil, because evil exists. Evil permeates the universe just like good and light permeates the universe. What's interesting, although, from the lessons from the Emerald Tablets, it teaches you that instead of fighting evil, you have to learn how to control evil. Okay. And it shows you where over time things are cyclical, and light always seems to take over the darkness. Because right now I'm in a room full of light, and there's no way that I can turn on something dark to make the light flee. But if I turn this room dark and turn on a pen light, light will flee. Darkness will flee from the pen light.
Yeah,
And so,
it'll dissipate.
right, exactly. So they're showing us, he teaches us to use a light in our consciousness, in our mind, that our mind is a lamp. And through that lamp and through achieving higher levels of understanding through these works, unconditional love for everyone, being of service to others, all those kind of incredible, things and affirmations that we live on, that we act on, they will create this new frequency of consciousness that becomes a conscious virus and spreads through everybody. And then that ushers mankind back into a new golden age.
Now, I'm really glad that you're drilling down on this, because the world certainly needs it now. So first of all, it's almost like this was a time capsule that was left, that was ready to be opened and digested at this particular time. Now, some of those golden nuggets, and they've been said many, many times by many, many great teachers or avatars or that have come, but it seems like it's so hard for mankind to get them. Can you just recite a few of them, please?
Which ones?
Where you were saying to how we should treat one another, etc.
Oh, yes. Okay, got you. The affirmations. Well, the first thing is, we're talking now pretty much about the 42 laws of Mayat. And I actually would like to just drop a couple of them on here, because that would actually be a good thing to do. A lot of people need to hear these. This is where the 10 Commandments were extracted from, okay? So they're really the 42 ideals of Mayat, but you can also call them the 42 laws of Mayat. They're called by a couple different names. And Mayat, by the way, is Thoth's wife, okay? And so she actually was his wife, and she was the person that really was the first one in what we call ancient history to begin to teach positive affirmations, okay? And so I'm going to pull these up real quick and just go through them, if I could here, just for a quick second.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And what's beautiful about this is Mayat, the actual Pyramid of the Moon, in Teotihuacan, where Thoth went to build the Mesoamerican civilization. the pyramid of the moon was dedicated to Maat, and it was built. It's actually not one pyramid. The pyramid of the moon is actually 8 pyramids stacked on top of each other in a fractal pattern, which is pretty interesting. Okay, let me see if I can pull this up here and just recite this for you real quick. But it's been an amazing ride just to be able to digest this information and learn about it and dig into it. And I'm going to drop you some of the knowledge of Maat right here, some of the original affirmations. It's 42. Okay. I honor virtue. I benefit with gratitude. I am peaceful. I respect the property of others. I affirm that all life is sacred. I give offerings that are genuine. I live in truth. I regard all altars with respect. I speak with sincerity. I consume only my fair share. I offer words of good intent. I relate in peace. I honor animals with reverence. I can be trusted. I care for the earth. I keep my own counsel. I speak positively of others. I remain in balance with my emotions. I am trustful in my relationships. I hold purity in high esteem. I spread joy. I do the best I can. I communicate with compassion. I listen to opposing opinions. I create harmony. I invoke laughter. I am open to love in various forms. I am forgiving. I am kind. I act respectfully of others. I am accepting. I follow my inner guidance. I converse with awareness. I do good. I give blessings. I keep the waters pure. I speak with good intent. I praise the goddess and the god. I am humble. I achieve with integrity. I advance through my own abilities. I embrace the all. Powerful stuff.
What a wonderful planet we would have.
Yeah.
If we just embraced these teachings. It doesn't seem like it should be so hard, but yet it is.
Yeah.
So many just strike me. I consume only my fair share.
Yeah.
That's
powerful stuff.
Yeah. Now, are these listings, are these in your book?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. In the book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. Yeah.
Okay. So we will get into your book a little later. Excuse me. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Well, actually, let's get into the book now. One of your newest bestsellers, The Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. I even like the title, Billy.
Yeah.
So what does the title allure to?
Well, a compendium is when you take a large amount of information and break it down in a way that people can actually understand it and organize it in a way that it can be discerned. And so when I was going through the Emerald Tablets and trying to find a way to explain the knowledge and wisdom that was encoded in it, I realized that I had to create a compendium. So I called it the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, a beginner's.
Well, it's heavy material. So I would think that we all need a beginner's guide. What are some of the other things that you have in the book?
Well, the book is really interesting in that it really begins to expose the fact that UFOs have been around since ancient times. In the very first scene in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, his father, who's actually Enki, but in the tablets he's called Thoth-Me, sends his son Thoth on a mission to the land of Kem because the Great Flood, another flood reference, has now started to reside. And the great ancient temples were coming up out of the mud. But it had been so long that these flood waters had ravaged the land that people had gone back to a barbaric state of being. In other words, they forgot all the advancements, they forgot the technology, they forgot the construction technique. They had gone to living inside of caves and so forth. So his dad sends him to the land of Kem, which is ancient Egypt, long before the dynastic era, and says to bring them back up to a high level of civilization. So bring them back up, meaning they at one point in the past were already at a high level before this catastrophe, before this global catastrophe happened. Now, what happens is he tells Thoth to get into the great ship and take his crew with him. So he gets into the great ship, and you think, okay, he's going to sail to Kem. No, it says they begin to rise into the sky until they can see the planet no more. They actually rose into space until they got to the place appointed, which was the land of Chem, and he can see the land of Chem and the barbarians beneath him. So this is evidence of UFOs or something, of a flying object that then descends near this ancient temple. And when he opens the door, these barbarians come to attack him and his crew with these cudgels and spears. And he raises his staff and he sends out a ray of vibration, stopping them still at a stone in the mountain. So he has a ray gun of some form, which I liken to the active denial system in the military. So I go over this in the book. We have a similar device in the military where we can send a ray of vibration at a crowd of people looking to attack, people looking to riot, and we can make them feel like they're in pain. We can make them freeze. We can make them feel like they have to throw up. So we have this device called the active denial. So Thoth is displaying this exact same technology 36,000 years ago. It's pretty interesting stuff. So we have evidence of that. And then the fact that he says, I builded the Great Pyramid patterned after Earth's force. Now, we just found out in more recent times that the Great Pyramid is a 1 by 43,200 scale of the planet Earth itself and all the other things that it does in that particular node that it's located on. So it's giving us an insight to this, this ancient advanced civilization that was here, and it was not only global but also interplanetary.
Now, people can obtain this book where and how?
You can get it on Amazon.com, and you can also get it on my website, forbiddenknowledge.com. And so you can go there and you can use a coupon code FORBIDDEN with the number 4 on my website, and on Amazon. I believe there's a coupon on there that's good till the end of the year.
Okay, great. So forbiddenknowledge.com.
Yeah.
Now, you've done major studies on ancient texts. We could do an entire show just on that subject. But what were some of the highlights that you have come across in these studies?
Well, some of the biggest highlights that I come across is the fact that a lot of the references that have made it into modern religious books actually stem from these ancient tablets, cylinder scrolls, papyruses, and so forth that have been left around and discovered, over the last few hundred years. Actually, since just before about 100 AD to 900 AD, a lot of these tablets and scriptures and papyruses have been discovered in vases and caves and all over the place, and some of them were deciphered, like the ones by George Smith, who deciphered a lot of the Akkadian and the Sumerian cuneiform tablets in the 1800s. All of a sudden, you realize with these stories you read in these newer religious books, new meaning between 100 AD to 900 AD, that's when the Bible was written, between 100 AD and 900 AD. It wasn't written in real time. They got a lot of this information directly from these ancient tablets.
I was just smiling because they were newer.
Yeah, they were newer. Yeah, right. So when people say new, I'm into the new age. I'm like, actually, I'm into old age. So I'm into the ancient stuff.
Well, you've done such a fascinating deep dive into these things. We're going to explore more. We're taking our first break. We'll be right back. This is Leon Isaac Kennedy with the fascinating Billy Carson.
Thank you.
Oren.
What about the comments in the Bible about being created in God's image?
Right.
Does that suggest that these other ET races out there are all created in the same image, and why would we be surprised if they look like us?
Well, if they aren't and we are, that would be one of the main reasons they'd be here, because they'd be very interested in us.
Sure.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interested.
I believe when they're talking about we're made in God's image, it's not a physical flesh and blood being. It's a spiritual image.
And we don't take it literally?
We don't take that literally, no. But that's important because that is the context of our times as well. If you subscribe to the ending of Christianity, the book of Revelation, then we have some people that will begin to worship the image of the beast, which is opposed to the image of God that we're made in the image of. So we could be talking about a different type of species, a different race that suddenly appears on the planet. Could be robotic, could be some kind of synthetic being that people...
Are there some portions of the text that we should take literally, like as it is written?
Well, Jimmy, there's a saying, God created mankind in his image and man promptly returned the favor. And to me, that means man has such a giant ego that everything centers around him.
Right.
So God is spirit.
Right.
So there is no real image.
See, that's my ego. I was always hoping God looked like me. But back to the point where we take some of this text literally. We read it word for word.
Right.
Reptilians and light beings and heat, rays, power, energy, and we take that literally. Is there another reason to maybe not?
Well, I think it's all a matter of interpretation, as I was saying earlier, that I think these beings do take on reptilian characteristics. Some do appear as light beings, and they can appear in other forms that we're not even aware of yet as well.
Okay, I see that I see Billy, so that means we're back on. This is Leon Isaac Kennedy, and I'm doing a deep dive with who I call truly a Renaissance man, Billy Carson. I call him a Renaissance man because he's an entrepreneur extraordinaire, he's a scholar extraordinaire, and he's a self-made man. I just have so much honor and respect for you, Billy. So thank you for sharing time out of your busy schedule with us. Paul Hilliard, former Defense Minister of Canada, and that's a very serious position. Defense Minister stated he believed that we have bases on Mars. I wanted to know your thoughts.
Oh yeah, and rest in peace, Paul Hilliard. Thank you for the courage, first of all, to even come out and talk, because he didn't have to say anything. He could have just kept quiet. Now, a lot of the stuff is based on his own research, but you have to respect the man who goes and does research. And for some reason, a lot of people don't want to do that these days. Now, as far as bases on the moon, my team called the United Family of Anomaly Hunters, UFA, UFAH, we have been cataloging images from NASA, Caltech, UCLA, Washington.edu, the European Space Agency, the Russian Space Agency, the Chinese Space Agency, and the Indian Space Agency for years. And we've now gone through over 1 million images, and we've cataloged now over 60,000 anomalies. The majority of them being, I would say 80% of these anomalies are on Mars, because that's where we have the most data. And we have found remnants of ancient civilizations. We find a combination of things, some things that look very advanced and some things that look very ancient. So there's this collage of things up there. Some things look broken and destroyed. Well, a lot of them look broken and destroyed and look like they've been flooded or run over by mud flows. And some things look like they're perfectly intact and maybe even functioning. Now, I don't know if they are. I'm just saying from my perspective and from the eye, and some of these anomalies that we've downloaded, that's what it looks like to us.
So you're saying that you have seen that there's evidence that there are things on Mars. So
without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah, you can go and download this information. It's free to the public to get these images, and we provide the source link with all of our images. so that people can actually take a look. And the Sumerian tablets, they talk about, the Atrahasis epic and the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. There were beings on Mars named the Ijiji that were basically this working class Anunnaki, and they were mining Mars for resources.
All right, and I'm going to get into the Anunnaki in a moment. But I want to make a point about you. Years ago, there was a show called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. As a matter of fact, I was on that show. They did an episode on me once upon a time.
Wow.
But when it came to that show with Robin Leach, I was the type of mindset. I was not so interested, Billy, in how a person lived. In other words, their house, their lifestyle, their number of cars, or any of that. What I wanted to do was get into that person's head so I could figure out, what did you do so that you had whatever it took to live like that. That's what I wanted to do, was get into their head. So when I run across a great scholar like yourself, then I'm very interested in, how do you obtain your knowledge? What are your disciplines to do the research and find the research that you do? Share that for our audience, please.
Sure, absolutely. Well, that's a good question. A lot of people always want to know what my routine is, and it's a pretty strict routine. I had so many people begging me to be, a mentor for them. And this one gentleman that I knew for years, I said, okay, come on. And he came over. By the third day, he said, Billy, I'm sorry, man. I didn't know it was like this. I can't do this. I have to go home. But I typically sleep about 4 to 4.5 hours a day. And the evidence of that is on this ring. This is an Aura ring. It tracks my sleep patterns and stuff. And my average is about 4 to 4.5 a day. And I get very, very good deep REM sleep and a good healthy sleep within that 4-hour period. So I've trained my body that way, I guess. But I typically get up around 4 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes 4:30. From that time, I do about a 30-minute meditation, sometimes 45 minutes, depending on how I'm feeling. After that, I come down and do a little stretch, get on my computer, start following up with a lot of the projects that I have that are going to be future projects. I start working down what I call my reverse engineering of achieving goals and on different things. So I have a lot of things always going at one time. And then I take a break, and I always do the same thing. Every morning at 7 a.m. on the dot, I eat breakfast at 7 a.m. exactly every single morning. Even when I'm traveling, I try to hit that 7 a.m. number because I like to get breakfast out of the way and move on to the next thing. I don't want to be lingering around. Next thing you know, you're eating breakfast at 10 o'clock, and all of a sudden it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So I get it out the way at 7 a.m. After 7 a.m., I move on to my next thing, which is my checklist and my to-do list. I go into my base camp and I go through all my to-dos and everything else and communicate with my team and see what the hot items are on the list for the day, the top priorities, try to knock those out. And the goal is always to try to knock out as many of the top priorities as possible. And I usually after that, I take about maybe an hour and a half break. And then in that break time, I'm usually studying something, even if I'm reading a book and listening to an audiobook at the same time. So I'll read 2 books simultaneously, one in the physical form and one in audio in the earpiece. And I will study both books simultaneously. And I have about a 75% retention. I've trained myself to do that pretty good. And then I get back to work again, and I usually then take another break about 3 hours later, and then I go work out because you got to exercise. They got to stay in shape. And then after that, I'm running errands. I take my time to run my errands. By that time, it's time to eat a quick lunch. I take a lunch down, and it's right back to work again. Videos. By that time, it's time for all the podcasts and the videos and the interviews, and they're like, I'm here right now. So that's the time we're in that era. We're in that spot right now. When we get off of here, then I got to go do some lives on some of my networks because I have so many different channels that I go on. I randomize where I'm going. And then after that, I take another break for about another hour. Sometimes I do a little cardio. If I'm going to watch something like a movie or a basketball game, I'll do it while I'm working out inside of my home gym. And then, after that, it's time for me to lay down. By then, it's close to midnight. I lay down and I'm back up again at 4,
All right. So when you're writing a book, whatever one of the books the many books that you've done. How long does it take you normally to write a book? How long does it take you to research it?
Yeah. Well, the research is decades, a lot of for the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, that was decades of research, just culminating everything together to be able to, when I started studying aerospace from the Encyclopedia Britannica in the 1970s, and then studying, astrophysics and in the early 2000s, all the way up until current, and astronomy, and became an amateur astronomer, and then getting into all these ancient tablets and stuff. So that was a culmination of all that knowledge inside of me. When it came down to finally writing the book, I made a commitment to myself that I would do a chapter a day for 15 days, and I shut everything off. I blocked everything out. I reduced my sleep pattern even more significantly, and I literally just did Uber Eats delivery for food. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't move out of the house.
Yeah.
And in 15 days, I had the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, signed, sealed, and delivered, and boom, that was it. The second book.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the second book, Woke Doesn't Mean Broke, which is also a bestseller. It's a financial literacy book.
Oh, we're going to talk about that before this show's over.
Yeah. Also decades of research. And for that, it took me 3 months. The book was originally 1,080 pages. And my editor said, "Are you crazy? You can't put out a book that big. You can't even sell it for enough money to make a profit." So we dialed it back to 688 pages, I believe now. Yeah.
Well, it's still a large book. However, I disagree with your editor. We needed all 1,080 pages because the book is so full of knowledge that people need. For our audience out here, so many times people, because they know I've written scripts and so on and so forth, people come to me and say, "Well, Leon, what do I need to do to be a writer?" Right. And I tell them, beside having an idea and the research and so on and so forth, whether it's a movie, a play, a TV show, whatever, you have to have discipline. To do a book or a movie script, you really have to have discipline. Yeah. And you have to shut things out. And I want the audience to pay attention to the fact that he said he made a commitment to himself to write a chapter a day. That's a lot of work. And it takes a lot of discipline to do that. So I'm just dropping little golden nuggets in here to the audiences as we go. The other discipline, people, even in sports, you look at great sports champions, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Tom Brady, who's in his 40s and still great as a quarterback, but they all have a discipline. If you look at their secret life, it's all about the discipline that takes them to that other level. And for our audience, it goes far beyond just sports. Those that are in research, those that are really trying to find truth, they put in a lot of discipline also. So thank you for sharing that, Billy. Speaking of someone else that put in a lot of discipline, the late but wonderful Zacharias Sitchin, who wrote the Earth Chronicles, which was a must-read for so many of us that were hungry for learning, hungry for knowledge. He talked about the Anunnaki. Billy, from your research, who were they? What were they? Where did they come from?
Definitely, I'll give the answer. And first of all, shout out to the late and great Zacharias Sitchin. Unfortunately, he was vilified at the end of his life by a lot of lies that have circulated throughout the internet and by people who never even read the tablets. His work
I was so grateful that I had a chance to meet him, only twice, but because it was toward the end of his life. But I'm grateful for that encounter.
Great man. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to meet him in person before he passed. I talked to his daughter a couple times since he passed, but great man. And what he did was he didn't translate any tablets. The rumor was going around that he was the only person that could translate the Sumerian tablets, and he made all these stories up because he wanted to get notoriety and fame. Actually, that's majorly false. He didn't translate anything. Zacharias Sitchin took existing translations that were done by experts long before he was even born. Okay. And I cover this extensively in some of my lectures. And so what he did was in his books, if you see every few paragraphs, he gives you the reference as to where he came up with that information. And so what he did was he took pieces of the puzzle and he tried to paint a picture. Is he exactly spot on correct? No, nobody is. But the general consensus is that all of us researchers and authors have come up with is that beings came from out there to Earth. They were called the Anunnaki. The name Anunnaki is actually in the tablets. It's in the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. Also, even in the oldest version, the name Nibiru of a planet that they derive from, some of them, not all of them, is in the tablets. So it's undeniable. I just said throw that out there because it's all this fake news that goes around on what really went on. But nobody has read these tablets, but they're available for the public. But they still go on what they heard on YouTube by somebody. And so these beings, the Anunnaki is a generalized term. It's not a specific group of people. It's anyone who comes from space to Earth. Anyone who comes from the heaven to Earth is an Anunnaki. The beings that were referenced primarily in a lot of these Sumerian tablets at that time were the Atlanteans. They were Anunnaki, but they were also the Atlanteans. They came here and they built an Atlantean civilization on this planet. The Atlanteans had broken away from the Pleiadian star system. There was a galactic war millions of years ago, and this information is written again in many reference points, which I talk about in my lectures and workshops. And they decided to flee. They became space refugees, and they went to Aldebaran, they went to Orion, they went to Sirius A, B, and C. They spread out all around the Milky Way galaxy. Some of them crash landed on a planet named Nibiru that orbited a brown dwarf star that was captured gravitationally by our sun. Now, that's in history books, that's in the astrophysics books in college. You'll find that we live in a binary star system, that they've actually found this object that orbits our sun every 4,200 years. And these beings came here and they basically began to mine this planet for resources. And after about 200,000 years, they got tired of doing it themselves and they almost went to war against each other. And that's when they genetically modified the existing hominid. We were already here. We were not monkeys. We were already hominids. We were not Homo sapiens sapien, but we were close. Probably we were more intelligent, in my opinion. But they genetically modified us, deactivated a lot of our DNA, which we now call junk DNA, shrunk our skulls down and to this size, reduced the size of our pineal glands, and put telomere caps on chromosome 2 to shorten our lifespan. And so we became the workers for them. We became their slaves.
That's just a fascinating study. Now, going back to the Bible for a second, does any of that fit into what is called the regular Bible, the King James version of the Bible? Does any of that fit in?
Oh, absolutely. Well, in the Bible, the Anunnaki are called the Anak, and we were grasshoppers in their sight. These were giants. These people were massive people, and they were the Anak, so the Anak, and also Marduk from the Sumerian tablets, the Enuma Elish, whose also name is Amun-Ra in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. A lot of these gods have 2 names, but he's in the Bible. He's in the Torah, and Lil is in the Torah. He's in Jewish American Library as well. These characters are all in this text, but very few people ever spend time really divulging and reading the text. I've probably read the Bible over 300 times, analyzed it, broke it down from the King's English to Aramaic to Arabic to cuneiform, and you'd find that everything is really, a lot of the Old Testament is coming from a couple places, but primarily coming from the Enuma Elish, the Epic of Atrahasis, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and then you have some of the Mahabharata, a little bit of the Bhagavad Gita in there as well, and then moving into and of course the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Moving into Proverbs and such, you have the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of Going Forth by Day, with the Papyrus of Ani in there, and then you also have more of some of the Indian Vedas, a little bit of the Mahabharata, and then a lot of the interpretations of people that lived long after everyone had gone and died that they put into some of the New Testament. So it's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, you just gave me a great idea. You and I are going to have to do a documentary just on whole spiritual landscape
Yeah.
and really connect all of the dots.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of dots there that have never, ever been connected, but they should be.
Yeah.
Because I think that it would cause an embrace rather than a disconnect.
Yeah.
You know, our team just did The Observers, which has come out now. And I must say, even though I was involved with it, it's a very fascinating piece. We had a A-list team that really did a deep, deep probe into what's going on in ufology from a long time ago to now, and dealing with what's getting ready to happen. And I'll get into this later. We're inviting other people to share their observances. But have you had your own observances, a personal observance of ETs?
That's how I got into all of this. Yeah, this started. So in 1970,
drawing even closer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is what got me in. So 1977, we moved from New York, from Queens, New York, to Miami, trying to find a better life. Unfortunately, we ended up not being so much better than we were living. If we were to stay in my grandmother's attic, I think it was safer. We went right into the heart of the ghetto in Miami. And we lived next to the Opelika Airport, which is a small private airport. And this is the 70s. There's nothing to do. There's no video games. There's no all-day TV. You got 4 channels, no cable TV, no pagers, no cell phones. You go outside and play. I'm outside playing in my backyard, and I'm really pretty much what I'm doing is I'm watching the planes go over. And it was so amazing to me to watch airplanes go across the horizon, what appeared to be, from my perspective, moving slow. But in my mind, I knew they had to be moving fast to stay in the air, right? I'm only 7 years old at the time. And so I'm watching the planes go across, and I would count how much time it was before the next one came across. And this one day I was out there doing that, and a plane went across, and then this other object went across, but instead of going across in minutes, it went across the horizon in seconds. It went straight across the horizon, and I was like, what did I just see? And it wasn't round, but it wasn't an airplane. It was more, it wasn't round, it was more oval. Now, it came back, and it stopped about 200 meters above my head, completely silent, and then it just went out the other way that it came in. And I freaked out. I'm running around trying to figure out what in the world. It didn't have a cockpit, no wings, didn't have a tail, none of that stuff. And I was amazed by this. I was like, what in the world did I just see? I knew that a plane can't do that. And it was this glowing, more like an oval, like almost like an elongated egg, really is what it was. And but it looked like glowing metal in a weird way. And so I went to my elementary school the next day, Rainbow Park Elementary in Opelika, Florida, and I went straight to the library and I got all the Encyclopedia Britannicas on aerospace. And that's when I started researching, 1977. That's how it happened.
In 1977, when you were 7 years old.
Yeah.
That's great. And that's what got you on your path to become this scholar and get all this information for the rest of us, which is wonderful. I'm looking at the screen here where there are a lot of people saying that they have had their own observances.
Wow, amazing.
So what we want you to do, and we will tell you how, is to write into the Orange channel. And we want you to put these observances, just put your phone up and have somebody film you and send it into the Orange channel and share your observance with us. We want to hear that. And we'll tell you why it's so important before the show is over. We're going to take a break in about another couple of minutes here. What I want to do, and Chris, I need your help. Are we going over to the other Orange channel at this point, or what? Are they being told how to do that? See, this is live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. So when it's something live, you're just taken behind the scenes and you're just part of the process. Thank goodness I learned my craft on live radio and then later on live television. Okay. It says you're in the show. Everyone can see and hear you. Okay, but we're going to take a break. That's what they're telling me. as sometimes, Billy, they say, in my ear, I'm hearing the producer say.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem.
Before they take us away, let me say this, since we're still on the air. When we come back, you're going to have a chance to be told how you can win a Rolls Royce from Billy Carson.
That's right.
We're also going to talk about Toph. Who was he? They say that he started the ancient mystery schools. Are there still ancient mystery schools even today? Stay tuned.
All right.
A shocking, hard-hitting film exposing the darkest secrets of the FBI and CIA. 1,000 pieces. There's a coup being carried out before our very eyes.
You're allowed to protest, millions of people on one day in crowds yelling, screaming, but you try to run your business, you get arrested.
Wall Street has laundered $100 trillion from trafficking in children and drugs.
The agency has dealt drugs throughout this country for a long time.
Mr. Secretary, is it policy of the U.S. government to reward companies that traffic in women and little girls?
Human trafficking has many more victims than COVID.
The complicity of the CIA, the FBI, the Justice Department.
There's corruption on both sides.
These agencies are facing a time of reckoning.
Are we at yet another crossroads? Get ready. 1,000 pieces.
It was so hard to come running out of a hell that nobody believed existed. My name is Kathy O'Brien, and I'm a survivor of MK Ultra mind control. The MK Ultra program was to ultimately control the minds of the population for implementing what Adolf Hitler first termed the New World Order. When girls reached age 30, they were murdered or they were sacrificed. I was going to be killed as well. I was to go out in a blaze of glory and be burned alive. I'm so fortunate that an intelligence insider who saw the kind of corruption that was going on in the highest levels of government decided to take action and rescued me and saved my life so that we could begin to expose what was being done.
Ancient teachings around the world see family and community as containers for wisdom. The stability and connectivity of the family is seen as necessary to ensure that information travels intact from one's ancestors through the stable family and into the community, where it's bundled and prepared to be sent as far into the future as possible. But for decades, a quiet war has been waged by globalists, communists, and social engineers with a single target in their sights: the traditional family unit. Can we rediscover this ancient ideal of family as a technology for transmitting wisdom? Superorganism, the family unit, coming soon to Orin.
Orin.
Okay, I'm Leon Isaac Kennedy, and I am with one of my true heroes, the Billy Carson.
Thank you.
we are going to be switching over to the orange channel in a moment. There's something coming up on the screen that will show you what to do as we finish the rest of this fascinating conversation with Billy on the orange channel. So fade to black. We're just asking all of you to go over there with us for the last half hour of this interview. As we go over there, I'm going to let you know how you can have a chance to win a Rolls Royce from Billy Carson. Now, that's interesting for the Fade to Black audience, because the last time that I was with the Jimmy Church, he had quit driving his Mercedes-Benz and he's driving a Jeep now. So he took Maureen and I out on his Jeep and we had a lot of fun.
Nice.
So while Jimmy is driving his Jeep, the rest of you can find out how to win a Rolls Royce courtesy of Billy Carson. Now, we won't tell them how to win yet, Billy, but this was part of your charitable outreach. And see, this is another part of Billy Carson that a lot of people don't know about, is all the great things that you do for people.
Thank you.
And you were telling me about last cutoff notices when it comes to the electric company, and especially how devastating that is in the middle of winter. Share a little bit about that, and then we'll switch over and talk about the Rolls Royce, and then we're going to get into TOF and other things about being an observer.
Definitely, no problem. Thanks for bringing it up, actually. So, growing up poor, and I mean extreme poverty. I mean, I remember days when we would eat Cairo syrup and toast, matzah crackers and butter. We had powdered eggs and powdered milk, which was horrible. So I never ate it. And I would often just look for fruit trees in the neighborhood to get some fruits to eat. And so it was pretty hard times. And, a lot of the times there'd be situations where the electricity would be off. We had running water, but we didn't have a working septic tank. So we'd have to take showers in buckets or go outside and spray ourselves down with the water hose. Not getting a hot shower often.
I was going to say, and that was a cold water hose.
Cold water, cold. And so when I got older, I was made sure that I can do something to help kids that would be in those situations. And one of the things I learned was a lot of kids are freezing in the winter, especially if you have no electricity. And so it's a hard way to live. It's very traumatizing to be in a situation like that. So about 3 years ago, I decided to start helping single moms. I started with single moms first. Single moms, final notice electric bills. And I would put this questionnaire on my website once a year in the winter. They would fill it out, and I'd have to go through them and approve which ones I was going to, pay. And they would send me the login, and I would log directly into their electric company account, pay the bill, delete my payment information, and log out. That way I knew it was getting paid. Okay. Because you already know. So, and the first year I did $10,000 in final notice. The second year, $10,000. Last year, a lot of people were complaining about the fact that there are single dads that are taking care of kids. I actually know a couple. I said, okay, to make it fair, I'm going to call it single parent final notice electric bills. And last year we did $16,000 in final notice electric bills, paying those off and keeping those lights on, keeping the heat on for these kids. So, just various ways I can, to give back. I just try to find ways.
Well, God bless you, Billy. And I believe that's why you're blessed so much, because you know how to give and keep the rippling effect of a blessing going. So with Chris, my technical genius, I believe that we're switching now over to the Oren platform for this last half hour. So we're asking the Fade to Black audience to come join us. And I think it's going to take maybe 30 seconds, Chris? You're putting up something for 30 seconds for that transition to be made. Okay, I think Chris just said yes. And